Welcome to In 5 Minutes. In this video clip, we are going to discuss the block diagram of pulse code modulation, which is famously known as PCM. In pulse code modulation, we basically convert analog modulating signal into digital modulating signal, and we transmit the signal in digital form. So we study PCM system under digital transmission discussion. Now we have already discussed few things about conversion of analog signal to a digital signal. The process of analog to digital conversion requires two important steps. The step number one is sampling process and step number two is quantization. So let us quickly go to the transmitter of PCM and discuss this whole process in detail. You can see from the input side we have continuous time message signal. When I say continuous time message signal, it is nothing but the analog message signal that we have on the input side. It needs to be converted to the digital signal, which will be called PCM waveform, pulse code modulation waveform. The very first block in the transmitter is a low pass filter. We will come to this low pass filter a little later. The next block is the sampler. Sampler is nothing but the block which will carry out the process of sampling. There are two types of sampling. One is called natural sampling. Second one is flat top sampling. So whichever sampling process we require in our PCM system, we can use the sampler block accordingly. It will basically implement the circuit which will carry out the sampling process. Once the signal is sampled, the output of the sampler, which is the sampled version of my analog signal, is given to a quantizer. Quantizer will assign fixed levels to the sampled signal. Let us try to understand this whole thing in detail now. If I have a continuous time signal, we all know that the continuous time signal is called continuous because the time variable that we have is continuous in nature. This time variable will take all the possible values, and hence the signal is defined for all the values of time t. When the signal is sampled, we simply choose the signal values at some specific time instance. So let's say all these red dots correspond to the samples that we have read from the continuous time signals. All these samples will not be read at some random time instance. They are read at specific time instance, which are called sampling time instance. So if I start from TS, the next time instant will be 2TS, 3TS, 4TS, and so on. This is called conversion from continuous time signal to discrete time signal. So at the output of the sampler, the signal that is present is called discrete time signal. Only the time axis is discretized. If you observe carefully, the sample values can still take any possible value. And that means the amplitude axis is still continuous in nature. It is not in discrete form. A pure digital signal is the one in which the time axis is discrete as well as the amplitudes are also taking discrete values. So after the sampling process, the next block is the quantizer, which carries out the process of quantization. In quantization, we assign all these sample values some fixed levels. So in other words, we divide the entire amplitude axis into some equal number of levels, and each level will have some fixed value associated with it. So whatever samples that are generated, all the samples that will fall in one single level will be assigned the same fixed value. Similarly, a group of samples which fall under some other specific level will be assigned the fixed value associated with that particular level. So likewise, after the process of quantization, the sample values may not be taking any possible value. All the sample values will now be taking the specific fixed values which are defined as per the levels that we have in the quantizer.